Hey, Dr. Crone here again. Hope everybody's doing well. Remember, if you're struggling right now, please let me know. You can reach out by text, email, or phone, or you can come to my weekly office hours. Anyway, for now, welcome to our video lecture on state economic development. This is the first in our series of 2 videos for our state economic policy unit. So we're going to talk about what even is economic development. What do we mean when we talk about this? So economic development, at least at the state level, are efforts that the state government gets involved in, or the city governments get involved in, to try to attract, create, grow, and retain jobs and businesses. And this is something that really every governor has to be laser focused on. I know we joked when we talked about political advertising about governors are in favor of jobs. Nobody's against jobs, but some governors are better than others at doing this kind of economic development and leading efforts to create and grow the business world in their state. Um, so the thing about state economic development is essentially it's a 50-way competition. Any business that wants to do business in the United States has 50 choices of where to do that business. And so that means that states are competing with each other. And, according to our ideas about states that we talked about the very first day of class, we talked about that as being a way that, states can improve their game and they're forced to in order to compete. So you can look at it as a good thing, or you can look at it as a difficult thing. But whatever it is, states are definitely in that world. So what do states do? What do I mean by states needing to grow and create and make a good climate for business development? How do they do that? How do state governments do that? So there are certain characteristics that businesses are looking for when they want to come to a state, open a new site in a state, let's say, or an entrepreneur, ideas that they have when they are thinking, I want to start a business, where am I going to start that? But largely what we're talking about here are big companies that decide, hey, we're going to move our headquarters, or we're going to decide to headquarter in Ohio. What are they looking for when they're making that decision? So when businesses are looking to locate in a state and they've made a choice, or they've made a choice to at least look into certain states and say, where do we want to go? What are they looking for? Well, they're looking for the dream. They're looking for something that probably doesn't exist, because some of these things are not available in all in one package. But some of the things they're looking for are low levels of cost of doing business. So that could mean low business taxes, low levels of regulation, because regulations increase a business's cost if they have to stop production every so often to allow inspectors to come in and inspect their lines, if they have to comply with labor regulations or anti-pollution regulations or things like that. The more of that, the higher the cost of doing business is to the business. They also want low costs of things like utilities, things like water and electricity. I'm going to use the example of the Anheuser-Busch beer bottling plant that's way up on 270 near 71. I think most of us have probably driven past that in our life. Think about the amount of water it takes to bottle beer, right? Think about the amount of electricity that factory going 24 hours a day uses. Businesses like Anheuser-Busch want that cost to be low, and it may be low in one state or one city, lower than another, and that's going to make it more attractive to them. They're also looking for a city to locate in that has a low cost of living, so that their employees don't have to be paid too much money in order to make a good living there. Other things they're looking for is access to business capital. These are loans or investments from venture capitalists who are backing their company. So the more financial institutions that are available that do business loans and business investing, the better off that area is going to be in terms of attracting businesses. A lot of what they're looking for from the government is commitments to creating infrastructure and transportation that makes it easy for them to do their business. So if we go back to Anheuser-Busch, Certainly, one of the reasons they wanted to be located where they are is because they're right on 270 and I-71, which means they have easy access to those corridors that take them out of Columbus, so they can send their trucks full of beer all over Ohio. So roads, convenient exit and entrance ramps, traffic management. Some businesses, depending what they do, may want there to be good access to the airport. In some places, that may be like, say, in Los Angeles or New York, it may be to the water for ocean shipping, or it might be public transportation improvements or things like that that they need as well. They're looking for a workforce. So are people in the area well educated, and are they available? Are there enough workers that they will be able to hire people? They want that workforce to be non-unionized, because unions end up costing businesses money. If they have to negotiate with unions for higher pay or better health care coverage, that costs money. And generally speaking, businesses aren't too fond of labor unions. They're looking for somewhere that has a high quality of life for their employees, particularly the people that they have to entice to move to the new state or the new area. So low levels of crime, excellent health care, great sort of outdoor recreation, nice weather. It helps if you have mountains or a beautiful ocean or something like that. A cool culture. We'll talk about that more in our next video in the series when we talk about cool cities. They're looking for a place that people are going to be happy to want to live. And they're looking for an atmosphere of technology and innovation where maybe there's a major university in the town like we have in Columbus. So there's going to be a lot of innovation, a lot of academic professors and people like that doing research on new types of technology that may benefit their businesses. So when you put all this together, it's this wish list that doesn't really exist anywhere. To have a beautiful place to live with high technology and good business capital that also has a low cost of living and low taxes is that's like searching for a unicorn. But we can kind of look at this wish list and see that this is what states have to think about. How can they at least provide some of what a business might be looking for if they're trying to entice new businesses or to grow what's existing and maybe percolate entrepreneurship and things in their town? So in Ohio, the most recent ranking, and I believe this is actually the 2019 ranking. I forgot to change the date at the top of this, but this is the 2019 ranking. CNBC, business channel, every year they rank the top states for business. And Ohio this year did well. We ranked 10 out of 50. So what do we rank well on? This is another one of those things like the education measures that are a composite of lots of different things that they measure. So we rank high on cost of living, at low cost of living, in other words, so good on low cost of living, and infrastructure and technology. Those things we ranked very well on. We ranked poor on quality of life. You know what it's like to live in Ohio with our gray weather and our long winters and that kind of thing. We're not exactly we don't exactly have a lot of beautiful ski slopes or ocean sports or things like that. But we also ranked low on workforce. We don't have as many college-educated people as in some states, and often our college-educated people are leaving the state for business elsewhere. Also, we do have fairly strong labor unions in Ohio. So here's something I want you to do right now is go ahead and pause this and just look up your state's rank to see how they're doing. It's if you just Google CNBC America's Top States for Doing Business 2019. Check out your state's rank, write it down. You don't have to worry about the extras. Just write down what's their basic overall rank. High number is good, low number is bad in this situation. And include it in your takeaway post so everybody on the discussion board can see what the states are doing, what the states are like around those that we're studying. I'm looking forward to seeing those. So obviously, governors and legislatures can't control every factor that goes into that ranking. Ohio can't become #1 because we can't get amazing skiing like Colorado has or a gorgeous ocean like California has. But there are things that states can do to try to attract and keep the businesses that they already have. So talk a little bit about those tools. State governments can reduce taxes. They can either reduce business taxes overall, or they can actually give tax subsidies and tax credits. These are also sometimes known as tax abatements for specific businesses. In other words, promise to a business, hey, we won't make you pay any of such and such kind of taxes until you've been here for 10 years or something like that. They can reduce business regulations. These are things that make it expensive for businesses to operate. Sometimes people call this red tape, and they can reduce that. Improving infrastructure. This is often goes into a deal of getting a big company to come to Columbus, is promising to build a new highway exit or improve public transportation or put an extra concourse on the airport. They usually do that if they're trying to become a hub of an airline. So all of those kind of things are things that are run by the government and can be worked on by government to improve that. Improving education. The better off you are with education, the more businesses are going to be attracted there, partly to have an educated and well-trained workforce, but also, employees may not want to stay from a company moving from Boston to Ohio when Massachusetts is such a top-ranked educational state. So for their employees' children as well as for their own workforce training, that's important. Another thing a state can do, and this is particularly Republican parties are in favor of these kind of things, is to make laws that make it harder for unions to operate in the state, labor unions. There's such a thing as a right to work law, which basically it's a little bit misleading of a name because I think right to work sounds like something we could all get behind. But basically what it means is that unions are not allowed to require union membership or fee payment by their non-members of who work in a certain workplace. And requiring those kind of dues payments is one of the tools unions have to keep their strength in a manufacturing place. So when a state passes a right to work law, that's going to weaken a union. Creating a modern, livable atmosphere. We're going to talk about that in the next video, what they call a cool city. That's something that they can try to do, that states can try to do. So let's look at an example of where states were literally in a huge competition for economic development and were making packages with all those kind of things we just talked about. So in 2018, I think it actually started in 2017, Amazon, which is headquartered in Seattle, announced that they were going to make a second headquarters somewhere outside of Seattle. And it was going to be an enormous facility that was going to employ lots and lots of people with really good jobs, high-tech kind of jobs. And they opened it up to a public competition and said, hey, if you city and states want us to come to you, send in a proposal. So 238 cities throughout the US and Canada sent in proposals. Amazon narrowed it down to 20 public finalists, which you see here on this map, including Columbus. And then each of those cities put together a complicated bid of what they would offer Amazon in terms of the things we talked about before, like tax abatements, infrastructure commitments. The Amazon basically said, hey, we'd like to we're thinking about putting something in your city. What are you going to give us? How good are you going to make this deal? So it was city and state governments working together. Ultimately, they chose Crystal City in Northern Virginia, which is outside of Washington, D.C. And they're actually it's an enormous construction project that's ongoing to build this and get it up to speed. So that's an example. Columbus lost, which was really sad. Lots of us were really hoping Columbus, I think we even made it into the top 10, honestly. Um, but it was a very public competition, and this is what they were competing for. How good of a deal can the city give us? So there are downsides for cities of when we make bids like this and when we get taken up on bids like this of giveaways. In fact, there were plenty of articles published in newspapers and things saying, hey, cities, there'll be downsides to everything you try to give away to attract Amazon to come to you. So what could be the downsides? I mean, the goals of this is to attract businesses. So that's good. You're going to create jobs. You're going to help your local economy. But it does cost to give tax abatements. Basically, a tax abatement means that you agree to a loss of potential tax revenue. It's not like they're taking away tax revenue, but it's tax revenue that could be paid, and all of a sudden, that company is not paying it anymore. Maybe there's property taxes that would go to the school and used to be paid on the old buildings that were on that site. Now Amazon doesn't have to pay those taxes they've been given an abatement. You don't have to pay taxes on that for 10 years. Loans, they often offering loans guaranteed by the government, low or no interest loans, and those could default. The company might not be able to keep up on those loan payments, and the city or state would be stuck with the payments. And it costs money to invest in infrastructure. Building new roads, laying broadband. Actually, Hilliard has had, and Hilliard and sort of west of Hilliard have had a huge project to lay infrastructure. It's actually what they were digging up where they built the roundabouts in front of Darby. One of the reasons they went ahead and did the roundabouts was because they had to dig up the road anyway to lay tons and tons of broadband cable because Amazon built a distribution center, not a headquarters, but a distribution center, and they needed the broadband access. And so all of that costs money for the city. And then if the business does well and sort of fulfills its promise to help the economy, that's great. But on the other hand, there's always the chance that they could fail or that they could pull out of the state, and then the state is stuck with losses and those sunk costs. And that has happened many times. States have been burned. Ohio was burned by Wendy's, promising that they would stay, and then they left and took a bunch of high-paying jobs with them after we'd given them a lot of things. So states have tried to come up with ways that they can do this economic development without putting so much at risk. And one method that they use for that I do want you to know is called a clawback. And a clawback is a provision in a legal agreement with the company that says, sure, we'll give you tax abatements and we'll build this infrastructure for you. But if you leave the state before a certain time, or if you fail to create and maintain a certain number of jobs, then we want some of our money back. And that's why it's called a clawback. The state tries to claw back the monies and investments that they've given away. So your book has a lot more details on that, and I do recommend that you read that. In chapter 14, pages 382 to 383 are going to talk a lot more about whether government gives away too much in this economic development game. So that's the end of our video on state economic development. And remember, that's the first of 2 videos in our economic development unit. So the next one is on cool cities. Be sure that you view both of them before you post in the discussion board, and remember to post about your state's economic development ranking from CNBC. All right, looking forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.